Hey, I think we're live. Are we live now? Yeah. Oh my gosh. So
I use the old
Tim
banner by accident.
Tim jumped the gun and hit go, and it was like, wait, I'm not ready to go. Oh, I guess we are ready to go. So here we are. Happy 2024, I can't believe it's 2024 already. I am so excited to be, to kind of take Team Tim and bring this forward. I am going to kind of reintroduce us again. Team Tim exists to help educate MSPs on shift left mentality, on being prepared mentality, on stop being reactive and be more proactive, both in your business and with your business, both for yourself and your clients. We are educational first. We are product agnostic. We try not to be slimy salespeople, although we will every once in a while mention each other. We try really hard not to plug people or products or processes, but it happens. And this year we have a great lineup of guests coming up. Keep an eye on our Facebook page. On our LinkedIn page. And yeah, do the like, subscribe, all the fun things. But anyways, I'm Tim Golden, founder of Compliance Scorecard. I'm here with our good friends, Tim Schnurr and Jesse Miller. Tim, Happy New Year, my friend.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Hopefully some great, some relaxing time off over the holidays. You can tell I kind of have a little cold, but, we're back and we're live. So I'm actually going to post Q1 speakers. We don't have the full, 12 weeks scheduled, but look for a post on that. We've got some great channel voices coming online. So I'm Tim Schnurr. I work at Cavello. I got a little echo there, Tim.
No, you're good.
We good? We good? But yeah, I won't self-pitch too much today. Jesse, you're up.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, Happy New Year. I wanted to take this opportunity to say that we didn't do Christmas presents this year between me and my wife, which was extremely relaxing. I didn't have any stress of gift giving or anything like that. And I didn't get in trouble. It wasn't like, we won't do presents, but actually I got you this one thing. Why didn't you know to get me one thing? It was actually a very nice, agreed upon, no presents Christmas, which was nice. And I think I sent maybe 3 emails over the course of the week that I was off for work, which has got to be an Olympic record for me. So yeah, great time off. Jesse Miller, founder of Power PSA. We help MSPs build and scale security programs for profit. And I am super excited for today's guest, who is Robert Gillette. So Robert, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here. By the way, we have a rule in my house. If you can't figure out what to get me within 5 minutes, just tell me you're not getting me anything, and then I'll buy it myself, and you can wrap it. So that's just way easier. But my name is Robert Gillette. I'm the founder of the MSP Dojo. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. I'm a reformed, or I guess maybe augmented sales professional. I sold MSP services here in the San Francisco Bay Area for 6.5 years and helped the company grow from $10 to $30 million in revenue before I got smart and went out on my own. So that's who I am. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that later.
Awesome. Love to hear that. So all of us kind of Northeast kind of people, Tim and I, at least for the moment, are braving and bracing for our first winter snowstorm. I'm going to end up getting anywhere from 6 to 8 to who knows how many inches, because weathermen are very unpredictable. And I'm a little jealous that you're over in the Bay Area. What's it, like 75 degrees right now, maybe?
Or hey, no, we get really cold winters here. It was like 40 something degrees last night. And no, I'm just kidding. No, we one of the people ask me all the time, like, why don't you leave the Bay Area? It's terrible there. And it's like, yeah, but my bugs are basically non-existent. We don't have bugs here. And I sleep with the windows open 300 days a year. Yeah. And that's really the only reason I'm still here, that and family. But that's
the whole Pacific Northwest and western part of the country there is just beautiful. Did a bunch of contracts out there in my early days, and I really love it.
Yeah, we had a really big client literally right there in the Bay Area, right, like down like Hines Avenue, blah blah. We had a great client that was down there. got an opportunity to visit a few times. Yeah, beautiful area, warm, sunny, kind of makes me want to think about leaving New Hampshire with a foot of snow I'm facing in 2 days.
It rained a whole inch here last week, and it was like, oh, that was nice. Let's get back to spring day. That's great.
Nice.
I'm kind of excited because I get to use my plow for the first time this year.
Oh, so are you going to have the cows pulling it, or your kid's new 4-wheeler?
All right. Well,
I'm hoping for no snow at all, because like we've had over 700 days, not a single inch of snow in Central Park, or just New York at all. I guess even in the whole Eastern Seaboard, Philly, DC, no one's gotten an inch of snow, and it's been great because like the roads are clean, no shoveling. So putting on those rubber boots that you like walk in those puddles, like where the sewer holes are.
Galoshes, as my grandfather used to call them, right? Exactly. No good. So let's dive into today's topic. And, for those that are on the live stream, for those that are jumping in the comments, we're glad you're here. Make sure you keep asking the questions, because we want to put Robert on the spot, or me for that matter, or maybe even Jesse for that matter. We're talking about, sales. I don't know how the word vegetables get into this, but I'm telling you, as someone that kind of doesn't, I eat some vegetables, but the other Tim, I would imagine, like, you live in New York, so quinoa and and couscous and maybe kale chips. I don't know. I'm like Jesse. That's like, you know what? Just give me a side of beef. I don't know.
Yeah.
So vegetables get into this whole conversation.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So when I first left the MSP I was working for, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do, and I got to a point where I had some time and capacity to actually think about that. Like, what do I want to be for the next decade or so? And so I started off by just calling 100 MSPs and asking them what they needed. What do you want? Like, what's missing? And I think it was, I'd have to look back at the numbers, so don't quote me on this, but it was something like 100% of them, or somewhere between 92 and 100% of them, said something along the lines of, I want more better leads. Okay. I want more better leads. That's what I want.
More
yeah.
Much more better.
Yeah. More better leads. That's what I want. And I close 90% of the business like 90% of the prospects I talk to, which tells me two things. One, you don't have a plan for getting more new, better leads. You're just hoping to give someone money and they'll give it to you. And two, you only remember the good meetings. You don't remember the bad ones. And maybe even if all of your meetings are really good, you're not having enough of them. You're just not, there's like a quantity issue here. And so when I kind of dove a little deeper into that same data set, something like, I think 62 or 65% of the MSPs I talked to had fewer than 5 new client sales appointments in a year.
Oh, wow.
And so what happens, what that was telling me is, like, we all want more opportunities, but if you paid money, that was 100% of them paid more than $2,000 a month to get those new, better leads. So I'm sitting here going, you spend $24,000 minimum a year to get new appointments, but you aren't any good at closing them, because there's no way you can be good at something you only do 5 times a year.
Right.
And so out of that, and several iterations later, came the MSP Dojo, because I was like, I just don't know how you live a life where you have to close this deal or your entire gross margin is blown with every single sales appointment. So the kind of looping around 15 minutes later, the ice cream cone everyone wants to buy is more, better leads, but the vegetables you need to eat is you probably should get better at sales.
Yeah.
Aha. So what you're trying to say is, I should be more into chai tea than my Pepsi I have sitting here.
And you be who you need to be. That's fine. Be about you, know thyself, but it's an objective truth that it's cheaper and easier to get better at sales than it is to buy 10 more leads. And if you could double your close ratio, you're going to double your revenue a whole lot easier than just trying to fight against the marketing, networking, prospecting engine to get more opportunities. You're going to struggle to close anyways.
Yeah. So this sounds like, I want to be good at golf, or I want to be good, something difficult, right? Selling's difficult. right? So
Yeah.
I guess, Robert, like we'll talk a little bit more. What are, tips, right? Like what are the biggest bottlenecks, or what are like
Yeah,
the
gosh.
easiest
So I
things you
think
can do?
and that's going to be very individualized advice. But if I could think in parables, which is things that are proverbially true most of the time, sales is a perishable skill. It's like fruit you bring home from the store. If you don't use it, it goes bad, and that's for several different reasons. Least of all because things change in the business.
Yeah.
Most of all, it's because you change. Your thought system, the way you act, the way you follow a process, your own discipline around your sales tactics, that's what perishes. That's what gets bad, has a short shelf life. And if you're not constantly staying strong and following good discipline and building up those muscles, and quite frankly fighting against that adrenaline of what happens when you're in a meeting and someone throws you a curveball, like you get out of the habit. It's like any other muscle. If you can bench press 300 pounds and then you don't do it for a decade, you're not going to be able to go back and bench press 300 pounds. It's a perishable skill.
So
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that, right? Because like you have a limited set of leads, and I quit. I'm done with jujitsu. But they used to say like, well, how do I get stronger at better jujitsu? It's like you do jujitsu, like you practice jujitsu, right? It's like so when selling, I guess the answer is like you can't really practice selling. Like you have to use your leads, right? And it's almost like you have limited opportunities. As you said, like, do you buy 10 more leads? So, how do you? Is there anything you can do like to make the most of those opportunities? Like, do you record calls and go back, or like rate yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things you can do, and here's just a list of them. Pick a couple and stick with them. One, pre-call planning. Like, what is your process for being ready for the sales meeting the day before, even the minute before? Like, what's your process for when you walk right in the door? Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, can you explain to me in 30 seconds your selling process? If you ask someone what their selling process is, and they're like, well, I take a meeting and then we do this and we do that. That's not a process. That's like a high-level guidebook. Okay, a process is what happens when, and then what happens after, and what happens after. In the same way you process food. Like, there are critical steps you cannot, like, can you explain to me your sales process in 30 seconds? And if you can't, there's something there.
I love that. As a process-oriented guy, you all know that I'm building this process thing. Like, I love that. The problem is I don't do that in my sales. I don't have a sale. Like, I'm figuring it out, right? And I'm glad that I have
breaking the rules. Yeah.
I'm surrounded. Well, and no, this is good advice, right? Because not having a process in place, you can't scale and grow and be repeatable, right? And so, I think a lot of MSPs, they understand process, right? They might have an onboarding process, a password reset process, a account creation process, a ticket handling process, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. The problem is they just don't do it in sales.
Right.
Well, they don't do it, and then also, so half of it is probably 60% is probably they don't have a process. We may ideate that first creation, as Stephen Covey says, like we have a process in our brain, but when it comes to the real world, the second creation in real life, we don't actually have a process. So that's important. But the second part of it is maybe that last 40% is you don't stick to your process. Well, this is a referral. Well, this is my friend Bob. Oh, these guys are really small. Oh, these guys are really big. And then you break your own process because, well, they wanted a proposal early. And I kind of got stuck in the meeting and I wasn't sure where to go. So I just presented. So we have to have a good process. And then you have to, with discipline, follow your good process. And those two pieces really together are mission critical to any kind of iterative improvement. Like, you can't get better at it if you're not doing those two things.
Yep.
So, and then I guess that's, another, if you're not doing this, here's another great little golden nugget, sprinkle it in there. Like, do you have a post process document? Like, so I had a process for after the FTA. Where do I, what happens next? Where do I put the notes? Where do I put the activities?
Wait a minute.
My
Stop.
rating.
Acronym guy.
Sorry.
FTA. FTA. Isn't that the like airplane company?
First time appointment. That's some people call it a discovery call. Some people call it, but it's like that first real meeting where you're having an actual sales discussion. We're not just kicking tires. They're considering a vendor. Like that's, you know, that's, I don't know who I stole that from, but somebody said that was the term. So, but you have to have a process for when you have that meeting internally, what happens next? You know, in your own inside of your own head, inside of your own steps. Do you document that? Where do you document it? Do you rate the meeting? Do you go back and look at what you were supposed to do in the meeting and ask, did I even do that in the meeting? That's a mission critical part as well.
Yeah,
I can keep going, by the way, but I don't want to steamroll you guys.
No, I actually want to interject here and say something that I can't remember who said it that I was talking to their sales expert, and they said yes, process, right, but you can't have your plot. It's a kind of a dance because you can't have your come in there and they're like, this is my process, and then the customer is put off by something, right? You have to be ready to pivot and go a different direction, but it has to be process based. So it's almost like a contingent process that you have to work out. And I think that makes sales really difficult in a lot of different ways. I want to get your take on that.
Yeah. So there's a difference between process and what I'm sure I could come up with a better alliteration for this, but there's a difference in having a process being a slave driver. So I like to think of it more like a co-op game. People talk about sales being competitive, and I believe it is incredibly competitive. It is war. But it's not you against the prospect. It's you and the prospect against the problem. And so we have to think of it like a co-op game. I have goals I need to achieve. You have goals you need to achieve. The board is what we're playing against. How do I get what you need and what what I need so we both can come together to win the game? And if we think of it through that lens, process serves the prospect best. Because I averaged 100 sales meetings, 100 of those first-time appointments a year when I was selling. This is probably the first time they've done this in 3 years, if they're unlucky. If they're really lucky, this is the first time they're doing it in 5 or 10 years. They have no idea about a good process. Now, what I want to do is make sure we follow my process with discipline while I'm accommodating whatever they've got on their side of the board. They also have to accomplish so we can tackle this problem together of winning the game.
Right.
Does that help you at all, Jesse, or did I get way too much?
I love that.
No, I think you're right about that. And that's exactly it. It's being too rigid. And, and I've come across this myself, as at a position where I'm at now, where I'm in a founder-led sales small business, right? But I'm helping MSPs, but I'm still selling. It's interesting because again, being a process person, I got really amped up on process. It's exactly how we're going to run a meeting. We're going to hit these 3 things. We're going to get all this information in the discovery call, and went into it like an automaton in a lot of situations, and realized, oh, well, that doesn't really work very well. And I think discovering that, hey, like you said, and you put a really fine point on it, but I love that about, it's war, but it's you and the prospect versus the problem. I think doing that and looking at it that way, and even in the right instances, slipping that in there can really turn some heads when you're in a meeting. And, I think something I go back to, and I'm going to take a quick flip here, is crisis management for incidents. I took a class on it years and years ago, and they talked about it as an illustration in the class, how, I can't remember what airline it was, but they taught their people when they were having a discussion or a problem with the customer and there was a customer service issue, don't be across from the customer. Go and stand next to them and talk shoulder to shoulder, because it's like you and me working against the problem. And so I think that's a perfect example of how to do that in a sales meeting, right? So that's great advice.
It's an awesome statement, right? And I think most of us in the channel work in consultative sales, right? So it's different than selling a car or whatever, right? Like we actually have to seek the problem out first. And because we have to seek that problem out first, like, as you said, Jesse, going in with that battle plan, like all plans are off if you don't know what the problem is. We've had a lot of conversations, Q to A ratio, right? Like let the customer talk, because that way you're going to get
Mhm.
one problem, two problems, maybe more problems, maybe all these things where you can actually start to make the fit for whatever your service tool, whatever you're selling, right? Either you're a vendor, you're an MSP, but I think that, I think most of the time we are involved in like a consultative sale, and you, for the work you do, I'm assuming, like VC is a very complicated, there's a lot of range in that. Like there's a lot of, and as you talk about ICP, you talk about why that ICP, right? Because like there's specific problems of a law firm or whatever ICP they're selling to.
Mm-hmm. So I want to circle back a little bit, right? So, when we think about a sales process, we think about I love that idea of working with the prospect against the problem, right? And so, first time appointment, FTA, right? And doing that discovery to hear what is their problem, right? What problem are they trying to solve for, right? And so they don't necessarily come right out and tell you, I need a thing to do a thing. Right?
Yeah.
And so it kind of gets into this squirreliness of like asking the probing questions to get to the, what I always call, what's the root cause analysis, right? And so what kind of even probing questions might we ask if they're not just spilling their guts?
This is actually a really hotly debated part of the sales process, depending on who you're talking to. There's some people that say you walk in and you know all the problems, so just tell them. And there's certainly, because if you work for if you've got 100 law firms, you do know all their problems. You know every single one of them. Yeah. If you specialize in dentists starting their office for the first time, you 100% know every problem they're going to have for the next 3 years. And there's certainly a case for that. On the other side of that table is the walking in. So what brings me in here today? And lots of probing questions that seem almost rhetorical, so that you can interrogate out them every deep-seated moment of their pain, so you can bundle it together and use it as a bat to whack them over the head, so that their purse falls out. Like there's certainly both of those exist.
I hate that. What brings you to a meeting with me and my platform today? Like, I hate that question.
Sure, but here's another one. Like I've asked the question, how many vendors are you meeting with? Oh, we're meeting with 5. And I go, okay, how many have you met with? And they go, 4. And they go, so I'm the last dog to the bowl. And they go, yeah. And I go, what could I possibly say to you that the other 4 haven't said? Like what did you not find in your first 4 meetings you're still looking for?
Right.
That's the same question as what brings me in here today, but from the lens of what do you need, not what do I need.
Right.
And so that's when I'm talking about like this idea of I know everything because I do 100 of these a year. And you are a unique individual that definitely has something specific for you that needs to be addressed. Someone there in the middle of that is the true consultant. And I want you to think about your onboarding. What do most of us, I'm guessing, say? Trust but verify. When you've got that 5-page Excel spreadsheet you send to the current vendor as they're getting kicked out the door to fill out all the information about every access point and every firewall and all the passwords, you take that list and you hold it for what it is, which is information that may or may not be true, that needs to be verified. And that's probably missing some stuff. And you probably know what it is. And so this sales is no different than that. You just have to layer over it a financial incentive, which is if you come across as smarmy, they don't want to give you anything. And if you run bad process, you're going to give away the farm for free. So somewhere in there is the nuance that gets a sales guy $200,000 a year. So it's difficult to tell you exactly how to do that in a short time period like this, but
and that's what I want to go back to. So we talked about the title of today's stream is eating your sales vegetables, right? I don't think we've really talked about what that means, right? What does it mean to eat your vegetables, and why are we calling this eating your vegetables?
So thank you for bringing it back there. That's great. I appreciate that. This is the hard truth. Most MSPs, especially MSPs under $3 million in annual revenue, this is what you need to know. The single greatest way to hit your sales goals is to get better at sales. Like the problem is, unfortunately, you. If you're the owner and you do the selling, especially because in most MSPs that size, the person who's entrusted with bringing on brand new clients who have never paid you money before is the job of the owner. No one's going to do it better than you. No one's going to care more than you. No one's going to have better access, confidence, or be able to build trust more than you. And you just got to eat your vegetables and get good at sales. And by the way, even if you hire a salesperson, they will follow your example. And if you suck, they'll suck. Even if you hire a good one. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. So that's the eat your vegetables tough message of today, is that if your sales are bad, you're the problem. I'm sorry. Don't hate me. It's the truth.
Well, I totally agree. And I have actually seen that firsthand. I'm not going to talk about me and my platform. I'm going to talk about me in the sense of I don't like sales. I'm not good at it. I don't love it. It's not something that's in my repertoire. I want to go and like build things. But Jesse, as you pointed out, like as founder-led sales, I have to do this and I have to figure it out because I don't have, a plethora of people. And I'm recognizing where my weaknesses are in that stuff, right? I'm recognizing like, okay, I might have a salad, but I'm going to drown it with French dressing because I like my French sweetness or my dressing. But I need to get to the point where us New Yorkers in Bay Area have our quinoa, right? I need to be able to eat those vegetables appropriately so that I'm fueling it correctly. And that's working with professionals like yourself. That's working, gathering information of people that have been successful at it. I sat down with, an individual and I basically told them like, I don't want to do sales. I'm going to hire somebody to do sales. And they flat out told me, one of my advisors, like, until you can sell yourself by yourself, you're never going to be able to do it well when you bring a team on. So don't hire anybody, figure it out. By the way, let me help you figure it out.
Well, I think we don't. I have this theory, right? And so I'm just going to say it. Is I think, and I know just speaking for myself personally, I had this theory probably through the lens of how I see the world. But growing up in younger school, I wasn't a cool kid. I was kind of a nerd. I was kind of a dork, right? It's probably why I got into computers in the first place, right? And progressed and learned how to talk to people, waited tables in college, right? Learned the gift of gab. But I still have that baggage where when I go in and I get rejected, that's not fun. That hurts at a core level, right? And so we almost ignore that thing and we don't like it because we're scared of it, right? And so I think eating your vegetables is a great way to put it, because once we repeat it and we start getting better at it, then it becomes fun. Because when winning is fun, and when you win at sales, that's a great feeling. When you bring this solution that can help a client out, you convince them that they need it, and then you make a difference in their business. There's no greater reward than that, right? And so we want to get to that point, but right now we're stuck in this kind of bubble of fear of saying, I don't like doing that. I'm just not going to do it. So the question to Robert is, how do we get from here to there?
Yeah, this is just full disclaimer. If this gets a little, I only know one way to explain this, so you just got to deal with it. If you want to hit home runs, someone's got to teach you how to hold the bat. Someone's got to teach you how to stand, bend your knees, line up your punching knuckles, push with the elbow. And then that's the technique. There's many, many people that will teach you to do that. Okay. Find the voice you like and then do what they tell you to do and ignore everybody else. But once someone has taught you how to do that, you have to swing at 1,000 pitches. And there's two ways to do that. And the only two ways I know of are do it with others who don't want to pay you money and do it with people that do want to pay you money. Okay. So you can either do it in front of your prospects, which is expensive and embarrassing, or you find a group of people you can do it with that will treat you like basically you're under the sun, under the spotlight, so that you can figure out what you're doing badly. And that's why I created the MSP Dojo, is because I couldn't find a place to do that at scale. So I made mine. You have to practice with somebody, because they're the ones that are going to tell you if you're bad at it. Your prospect won't tell you. They'll just say you're too expensive and hire the next guy. You got to practice with people and practice consistently in a concentrated way with discipline, so you know if you're any good at this. And that's the only way you're going to improve. So someone's got to teach you, and then you got to swing at it.
I love that because I literally, so yes, I brought a salesperson on. We literally this morning did a role play, and we've decided that we're going to do weekly role plays. I'm going to go and pitch him, and then he's going to go and pitch me, and we're going to do this back and forth, and then we're going to do a post-mortem and figure out what went well and what didn't go well. In fact, it reminded me because when I started my MSP and I brought in an SDR that was proven in the space, we used to do that all the time. Right? It's a little difficult when you're, a one-man band, but now like doing that role play in a safe space, Jesse, you're not afraid, right? That fear goes away, right? And it's great lessons learned, especially with the tools that exist today and the transcription things. You can pull stuff out, like there's all kinds of fun things you can do there. Like do it yourself.
I'm just thinking about
with the Fireflies AI meeting going on all the time.
I was just thinking about the Home Alone scene, right? We just watched that a bunch of times with the kids this year when he's outside. He's like, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not afraid. And then Robert drops a scenario on you and you're like, ah! Inside the house.
I love it. So I think let me just make sure we're level setting before we move on to kind of another topic, right? So I feel like the eating your vegetables part, right? I feel like the analogy here is I can keep sucking down my Mountain Dew that's unhealthy for me, or my Pepsi that's unhealthy for me, or I can find healthier ways to do the things in sales that I probably need to be doing and learning. Some of those include, at least for me, doing these, role playing, doing these, scenarios, doing these process things, having a process, right? So if I can quickly recap, right? I think, Robert, what I think I heard you say was have a process for your FTA. Have a post-mortem process for your FTA, right? And then continue to iterate and refine those processes until you get to your secret sauce that actually works. Is that kind of
yes, I would just put the asterisk on there that you are a big part of that process. And someone dropped in the chat, so I'm going to hijack for this one moment. Someone said AI chatbots can be used, and they certainly can be, and that's better than nothing. And if you're practicing with a ChatGPT, that's better than nothing. This is my problem is that there's the 7-38-55 rule, which is, go Google it if you don't know what I'm talking about, but it's documented, it's proven, it is universal law at this point. That 7% of what people hear from you is the words you use. 38% is your tone of voice, your body language, whether you talk fast or slow. And then 55% of what people hear is stuff you have no control over. Micro expressions, the air you give off, the things that we're still trying to understand as humans. And so you can chat with the AI all you want, and it's better than nothing, but it's only the 7%. And until you are actually practicing with a person that is going to be the closest thing you can get to an actual buyer, which in my case is people that also sell MSP services. They have the best firsthand knowledge of what a buyer would say when you say your thing. Unless you can get close to that environment, you're not going to get great feedback. And the feedback is what creates iterative change. I do a thing, it's observed, it's reflected back to me, and then I observe. That kind of feedback is what's mission critical. And as soon as AI figures that out, I'm going to turn it into an app and I'm going to sell it and be a billionaire. But until that happens, I don't know how to get that done.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you say that because I've been involved in prior careers like multi-million-dollar sales, things like that. And not every person in there, like there's role players basically. You bring a big team in, there's someone who's just really good at active listening, I think one of the comments was, right? And hearing things and kind of like being that 38-55, and then the subject matter, the ones that are asking like, or just know or understand the deep tech, right? Like they're in the room too, but like they're not driving the conversation. The 38-55 guy that's really good at it the big partner, you know, that's getting paid is the one that's kind of like going back and forth with the client.
The best example I can come up with this is it's one that I vividly remember. It was the second largest deal I ever closed in my career, and I was sitting in the office with the office manager, who was essentially kind of like the COO. She was an equity stakeholder in this law firm as an operations manager, and the director of IT. They had an internal team of 7 who were trying to partially displace. And I remember I asked a couple questions, and it was getting a little chunky, and I felt the tension, and I said something. I don't even remember what I said, but I remember the director of IT going, "I don't care how bad my guys are. Under no circumstances will I fire them. They'd never get another job." And I saw the COO go, she'd never heard that opinion before.
Right.
And it was that moment, like, you can't, like, it's hard to have a playbook to get back to process. What questions does one ask to get to that point? You can't document. That's the part that lives in you. That's the part that needs practice. That's the part that, like, is going to be hard for AI to ever really truly unlock, because until we have AI buyers, AI sellers aren't going to really matter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Body language does play a big, I see it a lot. So doing, live demos, group demos, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can see, number one, they're not on camera, so they're not paying attention. Number two, like, even if they are on camera and they're, like, as you keep seeing me trying to comment over here, you can see me, I'm looking away, right? So I'm not giving my full undivided attention, right? So body language, like, plays a lot. It plays a lot into
just even when someone says, "How much is this going to be?" and you go, "Oh, $20,000." You know, the way you say that is more important than the proposal you send. I'm just the way that you say that, and what your face does for the next 20 seconds will have more effect on whether or not they sign that proposal than the 17-page document you're going to send.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my gosh, it's 20 grand versus.
Or it's going to be $20,000, but
right.
but just to go, about 20 grand.
Yeah.
Very different in terms of what the client, that gut reaction, people decide emotionally and justify logically, and so the way you come across that 55, that 38% is mission critical. And that's where practice comes in, even in front of your team, even with a chat bot. If you have to practice somewhere.
Yeah, and it's funny. That also relates to doing, like, live streams, to doing this kind of stuff, right? Like, I still go back and rewatch the first couple of videos, and even the first couple of Team Tims, like, oh my God, we can improve here, and oh my gosh, we can improve there, right? And so, you're absolutely right. All that nonverbal stuff is extremely helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think you brought up a good point, Tim, just about the post-mortem, right? Like, I think that process also, well, first of all, if you're not doing it all, you're not getting anything out of it, but just some kind of reflection there. And what are you looking for? Like, what are the questions that are asking? Like, what are you focused on? Are you going, like, what went well, what went poorly? Or is it more, like, detailed and nuanced? Did we get all the information we wanted from them, right? Like, I love having someone on there, like, taking notes or figuring out, like, so you could go back and be like, oh, we missed that, but we can follow up with them and say on email, right? Like, and be like, oh, I heard that, it wasn't dawning on me that you asked that, but, like, oh, we do this, and that.
Thank God for note-taking apps, because I missed several key things over the last year that, like, significantly changed my life. I'll just leave it at that. Like, I missed a couple of key points and a couple of key phrases that significantly, like, oh my God, thank God for note taking.
Yeah. Well, I think, just full disclosure too, I've gone on some sessions with Robert in the MSP dojo and pitched like I'm an MSP, just because I wanted to make sure he was legit before we said, come on the show. But it was super. I'm really geeked about it, and I think he's getting a good buzz in the industry with what he's doing, because I think it's super valuable and it's very unique. But I picked up some things in those, right, that I that you, when you're with other people, you're getting that blend, that diversity of thought, right? That, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, you know what? That person just said something when I'm observing, right? That could be super useful for me. And the first time you might not be able to use it, but the second time you start to use it, the third time it becomes natural. And before you know it, you get into a meeting and that you're like, oh, this is ready made for that situation. It's kind of like you talk about batting cages. You see that spin come out of the pitcher's hand and you know the pitch is coming and you're just ready for it. And it's very natural with the swing and everything else. So yeah, there is my endorsement of the MSP Dojo.
That's it's very interesting. Because my own personal stories, when I first left the MSP, I started doing sales coaching. That was the natural, like, four of my competitors hired me to do their like fractional VP of sales. They're like, hey, you've been kicking our butt for like 3 years. Can you show us how to do what you're doing? And I started teaching them, and it was really discouraging. I mean, they were paying me money and it was great, but what would happen is be like, okay, do this. And then they'd leave and they'd come back and be like, I got my butt kicked. It was horrible. None of it worked. I'm like, cool, let's role play through it. Let's role play through it. And we would do that. But speaking of jujitsu, I used to do jujitsu too, and I need to pick it back up again. The pandemic kind of got me out of the practice. But when I first started, I was in a sales role.
I'm just too old.
Yeah, no, I was in a sales role. I was having my first kid, and I'm like, it's gonna be a girl. At some point, I need to be able to choke out a guy half my size and leave no marks. Like I need to develop the skill now. So I started taking it, but I wouldn't go to the classes because I'm like, dude, I don't need my fingers broken or a black eye by some 24-year-old trying to make state championships. I just want to learn to defend myself. And so I started doing private coaching. And after 3 months, my coach was like, you can't do this anymore. I'm like, well, why not? He's like, because you're not learning jujitsu. You're learning something. But here's the thing. I'm never going to hurt you because I'm your coach and you give me money. Okay. And you're never going to surprise me because I know all your tricks. You need to go wrestle with that 24-year-old kid who's trying to break your fingers. So you can surprise him and he can try and hurt you. And then maybe you'll learn jujitsu. And he was right. And I had to reproduce that for my clients because I could role play with them all I want, but when I see the gotcha, I'm not going to crush him because he's my friend, and he gives me money.
Right.
So I got to put him in. So what I did is the first iteration was this. I put the 4 clients I had in the same room together. I was like, you go fight each other. You go beat each other up. You're all competitors. You know each other. Go fight with each other. And I was like, this is what was missing.
Right. Yep. Hence I'm too old, right? Like, because you never know who's going to show up at that class, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
and I think that's a key.
You might not hear the tap.
Yeah. So the role play, I think, and we talked about this a few minutes ago, like myself and my sales guy doing the role play back and forth, right? You're right. I mean, I'm not gonna beat him up, but yeah, maybe I am a little bit, like, but I'm not because like he works with me. He's a colleague. Like but you put me in a room full of Roberts and Tims and Jessies. Like they're
I don't want to be clear. Like if you're not respectful, it gets back to me and we kick you out. But I think the idea is that like, it's like playing chess against the same person for 100 games. After a while, you go, these are his 2 openings. This is what he does. So like I'm not going to get to grandmaster level just playing against even the same grandmaster because they have a style, they have a process, they have a system. And it becomes this little echo chamber of knowledge. And I see that all the time, even in sales teams where you got 3 or 5 guys and, you've got the sales manager, the 2 guys that have been doing this for a while and a couple new guys, and they all practice. And all you're doing is learning to be the best version of one thing.
Yeah.
And then take that one thing and drop it in a brand new system. And by the way, I'm going to do a shout out to Joe Rojas that just commented. He showed up as a black belt just like Jesse did. And his first week, he kind of kicked my butt. And I was like, oops, I haven't gone up against this, praying mantis style in a while. And he schooled me. And I was like, oh, this is nice to get out of the echo chamber a little bit. And that's how you learn this, by getting beat up a little bit. So anyways.
Yeah, you got to go to different gyms, right? Like Robert, like I used to travel a lot and I love going to like Chicago, Boston, and like these guys are just doing totally different moves, right? Like totally different strategy. So yeah.
So we have roughly 15 minutes left. we kind of circled a lot around making sure that you're doing good sales stuff, that you're eating your sales vegetables, i.e., that in which it's good for you to learn from, right? We, somehow we went from vegetables to Taekwondo to Karate Kid to back to the, I don't know, we're kind of all over the map here, right? So I want to start to talk a little bit more about objections, right? Right. But because, we deal with the objections. We get them all. I'm too small as an MSP. My clients, I'm too small. They don't collect objection handling, right? And there's two facets of that, right? There's the client telling you their objections, and Jesse touched on this earlier, which is they're out and I was just kicked out. So there's the old crap, I failed, right? Like but objection handling, right? So I know this is probably like weeks worth of conversation, right? But there gotta be a couple of things, like key factors to think about when you're like, I'm too small. Okay, we hear that all the time.
Well, so here's my process. First of all, one of the big challenges is that, again, you do a lot of these, they do none of them. So the first thing, when someone offers up any kind of objection, you need to shut up. Sit back in your chair, take a deep breath, and appear to think about it. I mean, listen, yes, but also
stop
think.
And listen.
One of the things that salespeople do that drives prospects bat-ass crazy is when you know how you're going to answer the objection before they finish saying it, you just launch right into it. When you hear people say that salespeople don't listen, that's the number one thing that triggers that response. So when someone has an objection, go, well, and I promise you that builds rapport. Okay, so that's the first thing. Add that to your repertoire, okay? Take that pause and go, let me think about that for a second. Prospects love the idea that they stumped you. And again, it's not that we're play acting or lying. It's that this is their first time. If you were going to go race your toddler right now, would you smoke them full sprint and go, loser? No, you want to like, we're trying to do a thing together here. We need to win the game together. Okay. So take a step back and go, well, let me think about that for a second. And, okay. And then I always, after I get the second to think, I always try and do some version, whether it's Chris Voss's, everybody has all these different ways of mirroring or saying back what they said to you, but confirm you even understand what they're saying. My perfect example of this is expensive. Man, geez, you guys are really expensive. And so you go, okay, thank you for sharing that. I do hear that from time to time. But when people tell me I'm expensive, I don't necessarily know what they mean. So when you say I'm expensive, is it that like you've never paid that much before? Or is it that my video froze? Sorry. Is it that you've never paid that amount of money before? Is it that you couldn't, like, if you did pay that money, there would be no value? Is it the check would literally bounce and you'd go out of business? What do you mean too expensive? So by reflecting back to them that question and asking for clarification, it starts the conversation. It starts the problem solving. I'm not the problem. The problem is what's going on with your business, and I'm here to try and help you with that.
Right. Yeah. So just take a second and like stop your camera and restart your camera.
Yeah. No, we're gonna have to go with the ugly one.
Wait, so how did that go over? Because like,
let's see if the ugly one starts over.
Yeah, you're too expensive, right? Like,
yeah.
Are you asking like, oh, you can't make a good margin on if you went with me? Is that kind of what you're going with? Or are you saying like, I don't know. Obviously, it's a pretty loaded remark.
Right.
Yeah. And I apologize. My video is completely just given up on me. So does anyone know a good IT guy?
So there may be a couple on the call, but you're too small for them.
Yeah, probably. Well, let's ask some clarifying questions.
You're definitely too expensive.
No, I think that's right. That's right, and that's kind of my default, right? Is I always want to go and define what we mean by we're saying that. Like, I think it's great advice that I tend to disregard is answering too quickly. But I also think it's okay to take a nice big pregnant pause and then just say, I want to understand what you mean by that. Can you help me understand that? And just being curious. And it's like the adversarial, we got to convince this client is where we get into trouble. I think going into a sale and holding it, it's like holding a golf club, right? Not too tight, not too loose, right? Saying, okay, well, if this ends up not being a good sale, great, then that wasn't a good customer for me. But help me understand why you think you're not a good customer for me, right? So I love that approach. And I think that's a great way to handle that objection.
Yeah, you just struck on another nerve that I've been kind of working my way through and trying to understand too, and that is, we talked about FTA in the beginning, first time appointment, first conversation, first touch, but whatever you want to label that thing, and I hear this a lot: get to know or get to know fast, right?
Right.
And this may be wrong, I don't know, and this is why we're bringing in experts like this, I want to ask the qualifying questions because I want to know if you're a good fit. And if you're not, I'm going to move on because I don't want to waste 30, 40 an hour conversation if you're not even a good fit, right? That good fit conversation is that in the FTA? Is that like in the
so
first
that can
5
be
minutes?
anywhere you need it to be, but I would suggest do it early. So for me, it was within, like, if I got a referral to somebody, this is back when I was, boots on the ground. I had a quota to fill. If I got referred to somebody, it was in the first 5-minute phone call. I was trying to figure out, I personally used the IBM initiated BANT qualification for budget, authority, need, time.
Right.
And so I was just, and I was doing it real loosely. So one of my favorite questions was, okay, so how many users do you guys have? Oh, you got, 20 users. Okay. I'd expect a firm your size to be paying about, $6,000 a month based on the quality of support you're getting. How close am I? And they go, oh, geez, we're way less than that. And I'd go, okay, like 50% less, 10% less. They go, no, we're paying like half of that. I go, okay, I'm happy to meet with you, but I want you to know we're going to be a lot more than what you're paying now. And if I could prove to you why that would be worth the money, is that even an option, or should I refer you to somebody else?
Yeah.
So the idea of qualifying right fit conversation, get to know or get to know in the beginning, and it's something that I'm trying to, because I want to close everybody. I want to make everybody happy. Everybody needs and I'm really learned not everybody's a fit.
There's two ways to do this. There's the way to do it selfishly and the ways to do it selflessly. In this, it's very much about tone. And this is going to be weird, but your mindset really matters. If you're on the phone with a guy trying to figure out, look, I want to know if you're worth my time, because if you're not, I need to boot you as quickly as possible. Or saying, I don't want to spend an hour trying to fix problems that you'll never be able to afford to implement. If I can come up with solutions that are never going to work for you, how is that a good use of your time? And I promise you that mindset, if you believed it, comes across in your meetings.
Absolutely.
It really does.
Yeah. I that's one thing that I am extremely, it's an extreme pet peeve of mine is I want to seek, and people I work with, I want them to seek the good of the other party, even if that's not with me. And like you said, so I have some different partners in mind that, if I know this is not a good prospect, okay, I know they can go right to them and they can get what they need. And I would love for them both to win, right? Because it's about helping them win against the problem. So if I can win against the problem, that's a win for me, even if it's not with mine.
Yeah.
Right.
And by the way, if you're a salesperson that spends you can only really truly give your full attention to 6 active prospects at a time. Any more than that, and you're probably not doing each person justice. And so if you can get really good at saying, look, this is not a qualified prospect, or this deal is dead and it just needs to go. If you can get really good, look, we're just not going to, this isn't, I'm not going to win this one. And that's okay. If you can get to the point where you're really good at both those things and saying, look, I'm not the right guy to help you. There will be others.
Right.
And saying this deal just isn't going to go the way I want. we should part ways, or I should at least stop giving it my attention.
Mhm.
When you get disciplined about doing that with confidence, you have all the time you need to work with the right prospects. And it
So
all just comes down to your confidence to do so.
let me jump in real quick because I always have something to say. I did that. Like, I had this prospect that was referred. We have this know, like, trust factor. We've been commenting and interacting on Facebook posts, all the things for years. And I'm like, you need my thing. And you need my thing. And you've reached out about my thing. And then it goes silent and crickets and crickets. And I follow up and it's crickets and it's crickets and it's crickets. And I'm like, we have these, 3 years of history of working together. And you're still in my pipeline.
Mhm.
and here's the key takeaway. I finally was like, send the breakup email.
Mhm.
And the minute I sent that, the relief that I felt was like, okay, I tried way too long, but I sent the breakup email. We're done. You want me? You know where to find me. And the relief that I felt was like a weight off my shoulders. Because every week I'd get up and I'm like, oh, I need to call that person. I need to reach out again. That's a deal I know I can close. Like, like, and it was stressful.
And here's here's the golden nugget, by the way. I would much rather have a really good prospect than a really crappy deal.
Yeah.
It's so much better to take a deal that is crappy and probably not going to close anyways and go, you're just a really hot prospect. And when you come back up, I'm going to be so happy to work with you.
Mhm.
But like, I work deals, I prospect to prospects. And so like running that fine line of saying, you may have raised your hand, but I have a process that I run. And at some point you fell out of that process and you get to go back to being a really good prospect. But
yeah, and that was a hard lesson learned because I didn't want to let him go. And my advisor was, let's pull up your pipeline and let's let all of these go. And I'm like, okay. But it was freeing, honestly. So, all right. So we're coming up in the last 3 minutes. What we like to do in the last 2 to 3 minutes is kind of go around the room. Everybody share one key takeaway. Uncle Jesse, I'm going to start with you. Let's pull you up over here and get your.
Let me go first. I'll be fast. So I just love that beginning talking about it's you and the prospect against the problem, which is awesome. Jesse, you're up.
Steal the good one.
Yeah, I'll take the good one. Yeah.
I wasn't going to take that because that wasn't mine. So I'm like, I'm going to let somebody else have that one. No,
I don't have much to add. So.
For me, I think really it is getting out of your own bubble. So however you do it, whether it's with Robert, getting a local, peer group together, whatever the case may be, start eating your vegetables. Start pitching other people outside your organization, outside your current stream of thought, and start gleaning those insights, because I think you'll be a lot better off if you do it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I'm trying to find the comment, the thing here.
Robert, go ahead. And you can close it out.
So one of my family's core values, because I have a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, and an 8-month-old, and we developed these in the pandemic, was our core values. And I stole this one straight from the MSP I used to work for, but it's progress over comfort. There's nothing wrong with comfort, but be very, just like sometimes, if you want to be the person that progresses, you have to choose progress over being comfortable. And working on developing your skill set as a business owner in sales is progress. And it's not going to be comfortable, but it will be valuable.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. That's great stuff. Last year I had the mantra of start something, do something, start now, like just take action, right? And so I'm still trying to figure out, we're only 5 days into the year, what this year's mantra is going to be. There's been a couple of great LinkedIn posts on what is your word for the year. Our good friend Will over at Fifth Wall, what is your word this year? And I think, and I don't hold me to this, but as I look at my mantra for this year for Team Tim and what we're doing, I think part of that word is fearless.
Mm.
Right? Because I'm afraid of screwing up the sales. I'm afraid of letting that customer go. I'm afraid of this. I'm like, that fear kind of, stifled me in parts of doing what I do, doing the business, doing our stuff, whatever. And so I think fearless is going to play a lot into my mantra going forward for this year. If I learned anything out of today's message and eating the vegetables, is don't be afraid of the spinach and the kale or the quinoa. Even though you can still have your Pepsi, it's fine. Don't be afraid, and find good people like Robert or Tim or Jesse or those around you that are willing and wanting to help you in this. Don't be afraid. Be fearless. And here we are at the 3:00 hour. Everybody, thank you so much. Tim, real quick on next week and what we have coming up. Go ahead.
Muted.
Keep talking on mute. That's awesome. I have to pull it up. It's not currently placed in the LinkedIn. So we have to.
Right. So, follow, share, do the things. We have lots of fun people coming up here next week and the week after and the weekend. We have basically all quarter built out.
Yep.
I'm Tim from Team Tim. Thank you so much. And everybody have a great rest of your weekend. Happy New Year.
Subscribe now.